Learn to be super successful. Subscribe to my channel, Meathead. Somebody asked me in or YouTube, well, when I read it was this morning, I don't know when it came in, why I refer to you guys as ma'am and sir. I would say yes, sir, yes, ma'am. Because I have several teeth that I no longer have in my mouth as a kid because I called people something other than sir and ma'am. And it's like Pavlov's dog. So I call it forevermore. I'm almost always the senior person in a meeting. Almost always. Not always, but almost always. But I'm still, yes, sir. I still get up when a woman walks in the room. It's a little, if I'm not sure it's a woman, I still get up. Because, you're not sure now these days. And those are the things that were instilled in me from fear. There's no reason I ought to call anybody in this fucking room, or anybody that's ever sat in this room, sir. Out of deference to women, ma'am, yeah, okay. And it's the habits. I have extraordinary habits. We've had, in the last 30 years, we've had maybe half a dozen guys that have got good habits. One of which is you're going to listen to today, Roberto, who turned his seminar fee into $70 million in 7 months. One West Point guy, one Naval Academy guy, one ex-priest that had good habits. Nobody in this room has habits, good habits. Most of the habits you have are bad. So that part of the backward bicycle is, remember I said I can't fill your cup up with QLA until you empty it. And you got to get rid of the bad habits. And most of your bad habits you don't even know are bad. And so it's cognitive I don't know if this is proper terminology. It's cognitive retraining, 100%. Not 95%, it's 100%. That's why it's hard. And that's why I said, I think the first night or the first day, a few years ago, we've had a lot of psychiatrists come through the seminar, but he said it was his estimation that about 40, these are for the bright people. This isn't for the Nimrods. The bright people retain about 40%. And then it's for you to go back and fill in the gaps or connect the dots. And the easiest way to do that is total immersion from, you're going to hear Roberto say today that when he wakes up in the morning, he puts on something. He likes my Oxford talk because, not because he doesn't swear, but I don't swear too many times in the Oxford talk. And he's listening to that the first 10 or 15 minutes while he's getting ready to wait for his breakfast, which he's ordered, blah, blah, blah. But it's total immersion. Now, I listen to myself while I'm watching the news, and I think I've mentioned before, Sally comes in and I'm crying. What are you listening to? I'm listening to my University of Pennsylvania talk. I cry while I listen to myself. Because there's no finer speaker. Nobody evokes permanent lasting change better than I. Nobody. Since fucking Moses. Because I'm talking about something that you hold dearer than religion. Money. Everybody in this room's got a price. Every motherfucker that's ever sat in this room's got a price. And I know that. And I know, as Sally would say in a Yorkshire accent, I know the buttons to push. But anyway, I've answered this before, why I say ma'am and sir, and obviously this moron that emailed or comments on YouTube. And I don't answer YouTube questions. I see almost all of it, but I don't answer it. And if something important in the estimation of my crack staff, Kat or somebody will tell me, this is important, and so I'll look at it. That doesn't mean I'll answer it. Now, that map indicates all the places QLA has been transacted. Not map, the map. Every single place on that, somebody, either me or someone, has done QLA transaction, including Antarctica. So there's no legitimate, maybe that's the wrong word, reason that you can't. You may find a reason, you may find a way to step on your dick, which it never ceases to amaze me, the new ways that people engage in self-sabotaging activities. But there have been there. It's like Christopher Columbus allegedly founded North America in 1492. This castle was already 25 years old by that time that happened. This is 1468, or 20 years or whatever it is. But somebody has been there before and done a deal. Last night you saw what? He's dead. He just died. December, I think. November, December. I've talked to him. I've never met him in person. We were trying to do a deal where he was going to come here, and anyway, it didn't work out. And then he wanted me to come to the U.S. Open tennis, and I had no real desire to do that. But the bottom line is he doesn't know how to play tennis. He's the greatest tennis coach of all time. And you want to know. You want to know, see, and he doesn't know. That's the end of the movie. There is no more. The fact that he's had 7 or 8 wives, you can't remember their names. I've been married to Sally 7 times. I don't have 7 or 8 wives, but I've been married to Sally 7 times because the first wife I had, God love her, great gal, I married 3 times and it didn't work out, so I figured I'll double up plus 1 and I'll marry Sally 7 times, which we have. Renewed, they're not all married. Some of them are renewals or whatever they're called, both at the South Pole and the North Pole, amongst other places. All the time you spent on trying to figure out the whys, etc., and it doesn't matter. Steve Jobs couldn't write code, didn't know shit. You want his money, but you don't want to make his sacrifices. Or some of you don't want his money. Some of you would like to change the world like as he did. And if you change the world like that, I mean, money comes along with it. But any comments or questions or queries about the old man who recently just passed away? Yes, sir.
He was laser beam focused in his goal of creating the greatest tennis players of all time. And once you were no longer useful to that, he threw you out.
Threw you out the door.
Yeah.
I can relate to that. Just as boards are in transition, so are relationships. You'll call them friendships. I don't call them that. Relationships are in transition. The people that you may or may not have hung with as a 17-year-old aren't going to be necessarily the people you hang with when you're 27 or 37. And you'll split apart and normally you split apart based on economics. Not always, but normally you split apart based on economics. You go to Harvard, he goes to a junior college, you go to work for Goldman Sachs, he goes to work for the telephone company. And some of that's already happened. And some of that's already happened to your own children. Your siblings. When I ask you what are the highest performance thing your siblings have done, a PhD or this or that or nothing. And so you split apart. And if you go back, and I went to my 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50-year reunions. Yeah. And the guy that was supposed to was valedictorian of our high school class. All the exams and all that, the stuff that you get, he won everything. There wasn't one thing that he didn't win. National this, blah, 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 blah. Okay. In those days, the SATs were 1,600, and he got 1,600. And whatever, all those other exams. Okay. And he shows up at the 20-year reunion, and nobody could recognize him. They couldn't recognize me either, but I was a master of ceremonies, and I was standing up. We had our 20-year reunion on the Queen Mary in Long Beach, the boat. And I was standing up. We had about 350 show up. So about 175 couples. And so about half of our class didn't show up because we had a 350 graduate. And I'm standing up on the stage in a three-piece linen suit, trying to look like Rhett Butler from Gone with the Wind. And I'm, and the little badges were your picture of what you looked like in high school and 20 years later. And nobody could recognize me. But he walked in and nobody knew who the fuck he was. He walked in wearing a Hawaiian shirt. This is a black tie deal. A Hawaiian shirt and a wrinkly pair of pants and thongs. Not this kind of thong you put on your feet. Okay? Is that right, thong? Anyway, flip-flops. And he weighed about 250. And in high school, he probably weighed 150, 160. And then his wife walked in. 500 pounds, if she was a fucking ounce. It's all right to be fat. I fought my weight all my life. And he was a drill press operator. A guy, a piece of aluminum comes down and you drill a hole in it. That's what he did in Sacramento. Something happened. From a Fulbright scholarship, I think that's one of the ones he won. Fulbright, this, 1,600 in the SAT, and I talked to my principal of my high school when I went back there a couple weeks ago. I couldn't remember his name. I now remember his name after I'm not there. I don't know if she would have pulled the files out for me, but you're not supposed to do that kind of shit. But and that's what happens. And you've already seen some of that happen. Some of that's you. The president of our class, he wasn't the president of our class. The president of our class has disappeared. Vanished from the earth. He was an all-city basketball player, as I recall. And that day, everybody was black on the all-city basketball team, but he wasn't. White man can't jump, which is true. He can't. And so it's easier for you to get rid of those people consciously and not wait for your 10, 20, 30, 40-year reunion. But, those are harsh words, especially in today's world. But somebody's done a deal there. I was talking to a young man last night about Panama, and I personally have done deals in Panama. And it's a lovely place to be. But it has one extra layer of shit, and it's corruption. But several countries in the world have one more layer of shit you got to get used to, and it's corruption. But once you learn how to deal with that, and the people that know how to deal with that are your board, because normally they're from that area. So there's no excuse not to do the deals. Getting back to the tennis guy, at last count he had about 190 world champions, and of course they went through the Agassi thing and the Boris Becker and all that. But that's just part of life. That's nothing unusual. That's just part of life. Most of which you haven't experienced because you haven't been at that high performance in the athletic sense or high performance in business sense. But it happens all the time. All the time. And that emphasizes, or not emphasizes, but partially emphasizes why the people you put on your board are so important, even though they're in transition. And when you recruit them, you don't tell them they're in transition. Some of you morons are going to go, I say this every time, but you still do it. I get, email, thanks for sicking one of your little leeches, QLA leeches on me to be a transitional board member. Well, why would you say? Because you're stupid. Because you don't think you deserve the money, so you're going to make sure you step on your dick early on to make sure that the model doesn't work for you. You engage in self-sabotaging activity. Anything else? Any other? Well, I kind of summarized the movie, so nothing else? Okay. Yes, sir, in the back.
There was a phrase mentioned by one of the coaches. He said, if you want to do something great in life, you have to pay the price. You have to do whatever it takes.
Yeah, but I mean, everybody says it, but I mean, you knew that before you came here. So why haven't you done it? There's not a man, just a minute. There's not a man, woman, or child in this room that doesn't know, you're fat, more exercise, less intake, you lose weight. Everybody kind of knows that, right? Now, don't tell me your thyroid this and that's all horse shit. You're a tub of shit, you're a tub of shit. Got nothing to do with your motherfucking thyroid. I have a slow thyroid. I'm is it right? Hypo's the right word? Hypothyroid or whatever. I got a slow thyroid. I knew that when I was 17. So intellectually, you know all this shit anyway. So why haven't you done it? Because it's too painful. And we avert pain. We avert embarrassment. How many times, guys, has your girlfriend, your significant other, or your fucking whore asked you, how do I look in this dress? Do I look fat? I say, yeah. You tub of shit. Are you glad you asked me now? Sally doesn't ask me that shit. Nobody I've ever dated asked me that shit. Only once they ask. You want me to lie to you? Lard ass? Now you don't say that, do you? Because you can only get your little willy wet there. It's the only place in town you can get your little willy wet, so you just keep your mouth shut. If you heard Simon the Nazi, the more I do this, the more I start acting like Mr. Peña, and they lick my ass, if I remember the exact phrase. Is that more or less a direct quote? You're not going to do it. Even though sounds awful, having a tongue up your ass ain't a bad feeling. You still won't do it. There's some things you can't do. They're beyond, they used to say, a bridge too far. They're beyond the pale. They're beyond the scope. You can't do it, as they say up here. You can't, no matter what. So don't fool yourself. But the scripts aren't written that way. The scripts are not written vis-a-vis my jargon or language. The scripts are written what works for you. So you're not going to, but Simon says they don't work fast enough. That's why he switched it. Is it fourth gear? No. Yeah. As you go faster, you go first, second, third, fourth gear. Yeah. He's gone to fourth and fifth gear, which is my methodology because it works faster. What it really does is you get a no quicker. I'd rather have a fast no than a slow maybe. And my methodology, 15 seconds. When you really get good, 3 seconds. You want to fuck? Or fuck, But for some people, it's beyond the pale. You can't do it. I understand that. So the scripts aren't written that way. But some of the guys, not many of the gals, but some of the guys, because it's too slow. You don't want a quick no. See, you don't want a quick no. You rather be jerked off, not even physically jerked off, metaphorically jerked off, take them to lunch, do this, that, and the other thing. And then they just never return your call and they never say no. That's most people. And everybody in this room can relate to that at some level. Because you'd rather be liked than effective. You had your hand up, Holly.
Yeah, so I think everybody understands it, but nobody decides and does it. And the people who decide and just fucking do it are the ones that succeed in the end.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a difference between understanding intellectually. If I gave you a test, if there was a written test at the end of this week, and I told you beforehand there was a written test, most of you would get a good grade, a passing grade. But intellectually understanding QLA and emotionally doing it are two very, very different things. Very different things. Because we push off the inevitable, or in our mind, the inevitable. It's not always the inevitable. You can make the inevitable not inevitable just by taking action. You know, it's like the various wars in the last 300 or 400 years. They had superior forces, but they were over momentum, and the smaller force overtook them and won. It happens all the time. You know, you can name all kinds of battles that happened. But these battles were not won being on the defensive. These battles were won being on the offensive. And you've heard the best defense is a good offense. You've heard that before. And you run towards the gunfire and kill everybody. They're not winning these battles, not running towards the gunfire or retreating, or there's another word for retreat, but whatever it is. You win them by running towards the gunfire and killing everybody. Metaphorically. Anything else about the old man? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Nick just reacted. He didn't think about it, just like boxing. If you think about it, it's already too late.
Thinking about it is a good way to get knocked out in boxing. Yeah. And to talk to him on the phone, he was a cantankerous old bastard. I'm pretty cantankerous, but I mean, he was more cantankerous than I was. And, but anyway, it didn't work out. Okay. I said this yesterday, but I decided to put it up again. And, there's no shame in there's no shame in being a cunt. There's no shame in having no balls. And if it makes you feel better, you can blame society, your parents, whatever. Okay. But there is a shame in not taking action. There is a shame in that. And regret is a motherfucker. And when you get out there, default as a bitch, and you're going to go back to your default. Everybody goes back to their default in somewhat, from Peter to to TK to whoever. And 20, 25 years from now, when even if nobody asks you what did you do during the greatest transformation of wealth in the history of the planet, you're going to know. And of the 19 eulogies I've given in recent years, I'm a world-class eulogy giver, and I go to the hospital if they're still alive, or I go to the hospice if they're, what do you want me to say? And he says, well, I want you to say the truth. And I say, I remember John, this guy, world-class finance guy, John. The audience doesn't want to hear the truth. And they say, well, you do what you want to do. But they all say to a man, woman, and child that I've given eulogies for, and unfortunately for one kid, the regrets they had wasn't that they missed their daughter's 16th birthday, that they missed this, that they missed that. It's the shit they didn't do. The acts, the cowardly things they did in their life, meaning not taking action. Every fucking one of them. I wish I coulda, woulda, shoulda. And I was at a funeral a couple of years ago, one of the guys that I've known since I'm about 10 years old, he's died, and his wife a funeral, and I wasn't listed to give a eulogy, and so Sally says, well, why don't you get up and say some words? And then her husband was there. Says, yeah, Dan, do it. So I get up and I looked at the audience and I said, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the people that have talked about her so far are describing a woman I didn't know. The woman I knew was a hard bitch. I mean, and I went on and said some of the great things she's done. She came up in sales, selling steel in the 60s in a man's world as a woman. I mean, she was tough as fucking nails. And for some short period of time, she actually worked for me on Wall Street firm a long, long time ago. And so her son, who was in the back of the room, and I said, thank you very much. Then we went and buried her at sea. And burying people at sea isn't as easy as it looks like in the movies. Anyway, and so as we're walking out, 3 little old ladies, 3 little old frumpy grandmothers stopped me and pulled up my coat. Excuse me. Could we have your details? Could we have your phone number and address? And so I said, I haven't done a threesome in a long time, but with the greatest respect, ladies, you're a little old for me. No, we want you to do eulogies at our funerals. Yeah. But, I mean, it's the regrets. And I didn't know Jeff Bezos, part of his mantra of business is he's in the regret minimization business. What would I regret at 80? What would I regret at, And so, like I said, I want to do heroin when I'm 80. I said when I was 50. Well, I'm almost 80 now, and I'm not going to do heroin. So now I pushed it off to 100. Maybe I'll do heroin when I'm 100. But it's the regrets, and I get emails, all the time. I should have done this, and why weren't you harder on me? And why didn't you, kick me, or why don't you, But if you need to be motivated, this is the wrong seminar. Gates and Warren and Elon and most of the guys say, they're not looking for employees that need to be motivated. They want employees that are self-motivating individuals, and then they steer them in the right direction. Although I'm considered a world-class motivating speaker, that's not my claim to fame. I'm the best there is on the planet at getting you what you don't want to do to have what you want in life. And there's nobody better. And how's it measured, even though money's not everything? It's measured normally dollars, cents, pounds, whatever, even rupees, But I mean, there's no shame in this. Most people don't have any balls. Now, I think it's horrific that people would rather take a phone picture of a woman getting raped on the train in New Jersey. To me, that's a deterioration of the human race. It's not going to change. I've seen, a lack of moral fiber. I could speak from now till Christmas about that. It's not going to change anything. 1 in 10,000 can do this. About 0.0001. I said that in 1993, and I say it today. At that time, we only had about 6.5 billion people, 30 years ago, and now we've got 8, and we're going to have 9 or 10. It's not because intellectually you can't do it. It's because emotionally you can't do it. And now, less people, because the world is more wishy-washy, more woke, more politically correct, soft. Sensitivity equals poverty. I said that from the first seminar I gave, and it was with overhead projector, for those of you that are old enough to remember those things. And the seminar started at 8 in the morning. It went till 8 at night. No breaks, no water, no coffee, no fucking food, nothing. And then from 8 o'clock at night, I answered questions, Q&A, until the last question was answered. And I went to about past 3 in the morning. Same information you're getting now, except it was done in 15 hours for the Q&A. There's not 5% difference. The only thing that has changed is crowdfunding, which I'm having a lot of success with you doing crowdfunding, not me. Marcus Bauer has the world's record in crowdfunding, 2 minutes and 32 seconds. This is a lot of big money. He has people in his lobby. He has people in his parking lot where his offices are, waiting to see him, to give him money. Give! No paperwork. So crowdfunding, but he didn't like crowdfunding. He doesn't like investing. He doesn't like other people. He likes people less than I do. He gave all the money back in a month because he had 82 million phone calls. He gave the money back with a little interest. Said, fuck off, leave me alone. Just the opposite of you. I mean, you want the money and but it's the emotional bank accounts that prevail. Now, these are the tests you took. One, arguably two of you belong in institutions for the mentally disabled, based on the test scores. And yet you're here. You're walking around. In Hitler's era, about a third of you would have gone to prison just because you were so fucking stupid. Just think about that. We're not going to think about it more than about 5 minutes, but just think about that. 3 or 4 of you, 1, 2, 3, 4 of you got the super success test correct. One of those 3 or 4 got the -3, which is a perfect score on the success test. The other got 2, 4, slightly mentally ill, and 3. Now, I say it's only got a 95% accuracy. It's wrong. It's really 99. The 99, I could get sued. I don't really give a fuck if I get sued. But this, coupled with the homework, coupled with you sitting in front of me for a week, I have a 99.9% accuracy of telling you if you're going to make it or not. Only 99.9. I'm wrong about 1 in 1,000. 1 in 1,000. And that's what I used to do in the 90s. We had more people shitting themselves, passing out, anxiety attacks back in the 90s. We had a psychotic breakdown, a Nazi about 3 seminars ago, tried to attack the staff and the cops. But we hadn't had a psycho breakdown like that in probably a year before that. And that's where we are. There's a method to my madness. I know what the fuck I'm doing beyond anything. And I've got the numbers to prove it. Now, we had a guy 2 seminars ago, the worst scores I've had in 30 years. And he had been institutionalized. And he said during the one-on-one, he tried to hide the results. He says, how do you know? I said, well, I've been doing this a long time, kid. He wasn't a kid. He was 41 years old. 41. Some of you should not, only marginally one guy in this group, and it's a guy. You shouldn't be out in the street. You should be out walking around. You're not just a danger to yourself, you're a danger to humanity. And you don't go to seminars to hear that, do you? When I say you should have rolled down your fat mama's leg, I know exactly what the fuck I'm saying. Yet you can still get rich and be up there. You can have taken ayahuasca and still be up there. That's how great this system is. Any questions about the testing? You sick fucking dog. By the way, the first time I took all these tests, I got almost a perfect score. First time. And then there's everybody else. My kids got perfect scores. I would hope they did. The problem our children have is they're slow to pull the trigger because they have a backup. They have a backup plan. Even though I'm not leaving them any money, they think that they were born with a backup plan, me being their father. They're going to find that that's not correct when I'm gone, but we'll wait and see. Right now, we're in the midst of redoing our entire estate planning. Sally and I are meeting with the lawyers, and we're changing the plans. Not much, maybe 5 or 10%, because the world's changed. The last time we did it, I did it was in 1987. And I put almost all my assets in irrevocable trust. That was an error on my part. Because that means you can't touch them. You can't fuck with them anymore. So, fortunately for me, I made a whole bunch of money since then, which is not in that irrevocable trust. So we're redistributing it, and almost all our money is going to charity. Religious charities, mostly. Mostly the Catholic Church. Although we've done stuff for the Muslims, and et cetera. But a vast majority is going to the Catholic Church. Okay, no questions on this. By the way, there's never any questions on this. I wonder why. We know millions, hundreds of millions, billions. We know that. The kids from that list, and potentially you, those of you that want it the most will get the most out of the program and will make the most money. And we're not talking about bringing it forward and helping other people. Although I'm told by many successful people, about 10 years ago, we had 4 people in here that I started with 10 years before, and they came back to the seminar. And one had created 8,000 jobs. One had created 11,000 jobs. One had created only 80 jobs, and one had created African American. So I've created a lot of jobs. And one of my bases for politics is I've created more jobs in the UK since slavery. And I can prove it. Nobody that's ever run for politics in this country has created more wealth and jobs than me. And I can prove it. That's why nobody wants to debate me. And I said, Nicholas Sturgeon and all these people that are potentially going to jail for being less than honest with the public and the money, I've been saying for years. And now politics in Scotland's fallen to shit. But nobody wants to hear it. Yes, sir, in the back.
Because people can't stand the truth.
You're absolutely, yes. Yeah. And I assure you, when you leave here, you're not going to be able to stand the truth any better either. So let's not, jerk an old man around. You're only putting up with this so you can get the scripts. I wasn't born yesterday. Half of you are not going to use the scripts. I normally save this when I give it to you. Half of you aren't going to use the scripts. Half of that half, next half or a quarter, are going to use the scripts incorrectly. And a quarter of you are going to use the scripts plus or minus 10% correctly. We don't use the webinar anymore. We have a French girl named Margot, attractive woman from Switzerland. And she was the Swiss cunt of the year or some shit, 2019 or something. Made a whole bunch of money. And she says, it's French, Parisian. She says, I finally got around to use the scripts as Mr. Peña suggests. And I don't know why they work, but they work. Doesn't matter why. But they work. Yeah, I don't know. You know. She finger fucked them and changed this, changed that. I told you that's my management style, the hard-ass management style. Now, these are 4 things that most people don't get. They want to, it's the how, not the why. I've already beat that. It's the liked being effective. I beat that. When I was growing up, my father said, sticks and stones can break your bones, Danny, but words can never hurt you. The world has changed to the opposite of that. Now words can hurt people. And nobody dares hit anybody with a stick or a stone. And last but not least, fear is false expectations appearing real. You know, fear works. And when we talk about acquisitions in detail going forward from now, and when I tell you how to take over companies and what to do and how to fire people, you'll never have an HR problem. A lot of people come through here and says, you can't fire anybody in the Netherlands. You can't fire anybody in Greece. Or you can't fire anybody. That's bullshit. You can't. We're going to show you how. Whether you do it or not is another question. Because you got to man up. You know, you can't fire, supposedly you can't fire anybody in India. That's bullshit. You know, I fired thousands. You can't fire anybody in Germany. I fired thousands. But you got to man up. You got to be willing to take the heat. EJ and Kat remember when ambush chased Sally and I down the street in Manila because we had allegedly laid off 800 people on Christmas Eve. Well, no, I laid off 800 people on the 7th of December. And they chased us down. Well, I enjoyed getting chased down the streets. Sally didn't like it. She had to take her heels off and carry them in her hand, running down. I'm like, you know, wait, hopefully one of them will touch me so I can fucking crush his head, you know? And I get off on that shit. I like to fight. I'm confrontational. You know? I mean, I had nightmares about the boxing last night. Withdrawal. I was having withdrawals. Fuck. You know? I can tell you, every one of you, I can walk you through your fight. The ones that stopped in a minute, every single bout. You should have done this, you know. A third of you look like wrestling matches. You know, you weren't clenching to stay out of trouble. You were clenching because you didn't know what to do. So I'm confrontational. I love that shit. You know? Whereas it's hard to find somebody confrontational today. Not impossible, but it's hard. Okay, but I mean, we skip the whys from now on. Everything is how. And everything that I bring up from now on is, how do I use this where I am? How do I get out of my current business, or how do I make it more QLA? The easiest way is for you to turn the key. With 1 or 2 exceptions, your businesses aren't worth keeping. 1 or 2 exceptions. Turn the key. Walk away. I bring the keys to the cars, the buildings, and I put them in the banker's desk. And I wash my hands like Pontius Pilate. No mas. And I walk out. I've closed more businesses that were more profitable than anybody's business in this room that's currently working. I've closed down, walked away from the equity, the cash in the bank, because I know the value of time. And to clean all this shit up, took us 7 years to go to cash, Sally and I, getting rid of all our assets. If I had known, I thought it was going to take 8, 10, 12, 15 months. I would have given the shit away, walked away, and not sold anything. You know how much money I can make in 7 years? Other than the ego of some of the things, would have hurt me to give it away. But I would have gotten over the ego. I would have rested my head on Sally's big tit and, and she said, it's all right, Dan. It's all right. Now, we have one old man in the room. He's not old. He's 62. He's a young man. This guy was 66 when he came to me. Looks happy, right? He was happier after he did 39 deals in 36 months. And at that time, he held the record for a deal in 7 days. And he did his first deal in 73 days. And he's the guy on my social media in a jet with his son and his son's girlfriend going to Dubai for the weekend or some shit. Fiancé to get engaged or married or some shit like that. He's now 70. Still a young man. His wife told him not to. His children told him not to. His grandchildren told him not to. His lawyers told him not to. His accountants told him not to. He's from Nottingham. He said, I'm glad I didn't listen to them. And he says, I'm having more fun than you can ever imagine. Okay, YouTube, goodbye.